Welcome. Let's look at proportional and non-proportional relationships. So proportional and then non-proportional relationships. The difference is going through the origin or not. So you remember y equals kx from doing direct variation. Direct variation has a y-intercept of 0. Always goes through 0, 0. Okay, but we don't actually write that. And so we can figure out what k is, or the slope for this, by simply doing y divided by x. Well, when you have a non-proportional relationship, you're not going through 0, 0, and that's why m is equal to a y minus y and an x minus an x. So it's a change in y's and a change in x's. In this one's, there's no change between the y's or between the x's. Here, there is a change between the y's and between the x's. So another way of saying it, the ratio of x to y is different for each set of points. All right. Well, actually, let's just look at a couple and see what happens here. Make the equation of a non-proportional relationship. So notice in this first one, we're going through the y-axis at +3, not at 0, 0. On this other one, we can't even see where, for number 2, we can't even see where we're going through it yet. We could figure out in a couple of ways, and we'll do that. But first, right now, what we'll do here is see that b is equal to 3. We know that. And I'll actually write it down here that the b is the y-intercept, and that's 3. And then we need the slope. For the slope, all you really need to do is find 2 points and then find the rise and the run. So if I'm here and I go up 3, and then I go this way 2, okay, so I'm getting +3 as a rise, and then a run of 2. And then if I'm going to do the slope-intercept form, it's y equals 3 over 2x plus 3. Okay. I'm going to make that 3 here a little clearer. And then over here on this one, okay, now this one's actually sort of the same type of thing. I'm not going to graph it yet, but watch what happens right now when I get the slope. The slope, m is equal to y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. I need to determine here which ones I want to use. Well, let's just use the first 2. So this is the second pair, so that's y2, and this is y1. So that means it's 6 minus 4.5. And on the top, that's x2 and x1. So it's going to be 2 minus 1. So I get 1.5 over 1, or 1.5. And that means I can start making the slope-intercept form. And we can pick one of those points and put them in there. I'll use the first one. So the y is 4.5 equals 1.5 times 1 plus b. So we'll continue multiplying and then subtracting. So b is equal to 3, which allows us to do y is equal to 1.5x plus 3. Well, I could have made this into a fraction of 3 over 2 if I doubled both of them. But 1.5 is the decimal form of 3 over 2, which means these two are the same. The table one, if I were to graph it, if I were to take these points and graph them, I would be at 1 and 4.5, which is right about here, and then 2 and 6, which would be right about here. And so it would be on the same line as before because they both have the same slope. So that's an example of, from a graph or from a table, making the equation. Try this one yourself. Stop the video, try them, come back to it, start it again, and you'll see me then start going through it. All right, now let's make these here. All right, so for this one, the y-intercept on a graph is usually easier to see. I can see that's a -3. And then the slope is usually easier to see because I just have to find another place where there's an actual point here. I have a point here and a point there and a point here. So if I do a rise of 2, well, let's go all the way up to here. This is a rise of 4, but then I'm going that direction, so it's a -2. So the slope is the y change of 4, because the y's were going from one y to another to get 4 of them. And the x's were going backwards 2, which is -1/2. And from that, we can make the equation. -1/2, don't forget the x, -3. Oh, I just made a mistake. Let's fix that. I don't know why I was thinking 1/2 staying on the bottom, because clearly 4/2 is 2. Good. Whoops. Okay, let's get that 2 in here. There, that's a much better answer. Now let's come over to this one. And now notice 3 and 16. If I did 3 here, it looks like maybe it's that same line if it keeps on going. Well, we'll find out if it's the same slope and the same y-intercept. So here, this time we start with the slope. We find the slope by doing y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And you can use any pairs here. I might as well use the first two again. You can use any two. And this is the first pair and the second pair. So that means the second y, this is y2 and y1. So I'm going to do 14 minus 16. And the second pair, I have to do the x's in the same order. So it's going to be 6 minus 3. So I get a -2 on top and a 3 on the bottom, and the negative goes in the middle. Better on the middle than the top or the bottom. So now I have a partial answer of y equals -2/3 x plus b. And I need to put any one of the points in there. We might as well take the first pair again. 16 of these, of y's, -2/3, and put a 3 here. It's really nice then where you have something just crosses out like that. Okay. So I have 16 equals -2 plus b. We'll add 2. And so b is equal to 18. Okay. And over here, then, we can say y is equal to -2/3 x plus 18. Ooh, it turns out that these are not the same lines. So if I were to graph them, I would go to way down there at way up at +18. And then we'd be going down to, and then over 3. And so it's a different line than the first one is. So these are two different ones this time. Let's get more of this yellowed in. So make sure you are comfortable with seeing a graph and making an equation with the y-intercept and the slope, or from a table, being able to first find the slope. Make this here, so bring them back here. That first finding the slope and then finding the y-intercept. Okay, let's get this so it's there. Getting those two things. I hope that helps as a review about doing equations with this, but really the other way to think about it is these are non-proportional. They don't go through 0, 0. But most of the ones that we do are like that. They don't go through 0, 0. And you want to be very comfortable finding slope and y-intercept. Okay, thank you for watching and listening.